The northern red-legged frog is just one of the many protected species of amphibians at the Nisqually National Wildlife Refuge. The northern red-legged frog, or more specifically known by its scientific name as Rana aurora aurora, has experienced a decline in population over the past few decades. The different contributing factors for these declines include environmental stressors such as UVB radiation, habitat destruction, and harmful effects the frogs go through at the larval stage. This frog is protected by federal laws that govern the protection and preservation of the species. The riparian habitat at the refuge is fully functioning and thriving, allowing the red-legged frog to live in an environment that is ecologically constant. The reason that we are still able to view and witness the red-legged frog in the wild in Washington state is due in large part to these refuges that focus on the conservation and survival of the species. According to the article, the capacity of the National Wildlife Refuge System to conserve threatened and endangered animal species in the United States. Theodore Roosevelt's designation of Pelican Island as a national wildlife refuge in 1903 is generally regarded as the inception of the U.S. National Wildlife Refuge System. From the beginning, national wildlife refuges were created out of concern for the survival of the species, and that concern has increased as more species have become imperiled. With the introduction of the Wildlife Refuge System, 30 million hectares are now under federal laws promoting conservation. The Nisqually National Wildlife Refuge is part of this extraordinary effort to conserve and protect the animal and plant species from being threatened, such as the northern red-legged frog and the Oregon spotted frog in the state of Washington. The northern red-legged frog is medium-sized and has a red pigment on its undersurfaces, and has a distinct patch of black and green color between the body and its groin. The northern red-legged frog, although still common in many areas, this species has noticeably diminished in numbers in other regions. It is found from northwestern California northward to southwestern British Columbia. The northern red-legged frog can be found in lowland elevations, usually forest habitats, where they are able to have a suitable breeding site. The northern red-legged frog can be found in forest habitats that are located far away from water occasionally, and are found mainly around standing or flowing water. These fast frogs are hard to be seen and are both day and night movers. They are able to blend into their woody forest environment. Nisqually National Wildlife Refuge permits a perfect breeding ground for these medium-sized frogs where the species are able to grow, flourish, and survive naturally. Another species of frog that is known to reside in the bounds of the Nisqually National Wildlife Refuge is the Oregon spotted frog. The Oregon spotted frog is listed as an endangered species, but it can be found in some parts of Washington state, such as the Black Lake River unit of the Nisqually River. Black River unit is only one of 3 places in Washington state where the Oregon spotted frog has been known to reside or occur. The Oregon spotted frog is a state-listed endangered species and a candidate for federal listing under the Endangered Species Act. The Oregon spotted frog is commonly mistaken for the northern red-legged frog by its appearance. A status report conducted by the Washington Department of Fish and Wildlife concluded that these 2 frogs may look similar, but they have very distinct markings that separate them. Many factors for amphibian declines include habitat destruction, alteration, and fragmentation. This comes from the building of roads and introduction of new species that prove invasive. Amphibians are extremely sensitive to small changes in their environment, such as climate change and change in moisture. This may be a direct byproduct of global warming. This in turn makes amphibians all the more sensitive to chemical contaminants as well as UVB radiation. Levels of UVB radiation in the atmosphere have risen significantly over the past few decades. Researchers have found that UVB radiation can kill amphibians directly, cause sublethal effects, and slow growth rates and immune dysfunction. The threat of disease and deformities is also a great issue for the survival of the amphibian species. Chemical stressors present a great threat to lethal, sublethal, and direct effects on these extraordinary vulnerable amphibians. The next area of discussion is the threat of invasive species. Besides trout, other fish species have been introduced accidentally and intentionally into water habitats worldwide. Bluegill sunfish decrease the survival of the northern red-legged frog. Humans are responsible for global warming, the major threat that is being imposed onto the amphibian population. It is now up to the human race to discover and generate a plan in succeeding in preserving amphibian populations. Some suggestions for building a plan to conserve and protect amphibians is detailed in the pages of amphibaweb.org, detailing we must participate in captive breeding, reintroduce these populations back into the wild in hopes that they will generate new populations and non-native invasive species removal. To participate in captive breeding, there must be some consultation with zoos. Since many of the world's greatest amphibians are either extinct or endangered, it would be a shame to let the rest of them die off. It is now the role of human beings to help these vulnerable amphibians reach the ponds and streams that are very detrimental to their survival. The most important thing to do is to get involved and to help join the fight to help the populations of amphibians grow. Amphibian Arc focuses on conservation of amphibians and reptiles, and the Society for the Study of Amphibians and Reptiles, or SSAR, is a non-profit organization established for advanced research, conservation, and education concerning amphibians and reptiles. Getting involved locally is important for conservation. You can volunteer at the local national wildlife refuges and become involved directly.